Hey guys, I'm Dimension Jumper and today I'll be reviewing The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, which was released back in 2023. Now, when this video is uploaded, as well as being recorded and uploaded, it will be 2 years since Tears of the Kingdom has been released. And since it is the 2 year anniversary, I thought, why not make a video about it? Because I think I do remember making like a non-spoiler review for the video or on the game, and I think that was like around the first few months or so of its release. But since it's been 2 years, I thought, why not make an entire video about the game? So yeah, so this game, Tears of the Kingdom, takes place a few months to a year or so since the events of Breath of the Wild. The game doesn't really tell you how long it's been since Link and Zelda have defeated Calamity Ganon. Is quite vague, because at least with Tears of the Kingdom, not Tears of the Kingdom, with Breath of the Wild, from from the start of the game, it's been 100 years since Calamity Ganon took over the Divine Beasts and destroyed pretty much nearly all of Hyrule. But with Tears of the Kingdom, I think it's stated by someone who made the game it's been a few months or so, but the game doesn't really tell you, and I think there's a problem, or I'm not a huge fan of, because I think it's just because it's not really told about, because a lot of things are explained, but like the calamity and stuff, like there are things that are talked about from the previous game. I think there are things that are from Breath of the Wild that do make it kind of over to the Kingdom a bit. Like I think there is some like throwaway lines about how the events of Breath of the Wild has affected Tears of the Kingdom in some small way. But apart from that, there isn't really a lot of things that tell how long it's been since those two games have started and finished, when it comes to like the end of Breath of the Wild and the start of Tears of the Kingdom. But yeah, that's one of the few things I'm not a huge fan of in terms of how it's talked about. But at the start of Tears of the Kingdom, Link and Zelda find the mummified corpse of Ganondorf, who is underneath Hyrule Castle, and on like the chest of Ganondorf, there is a weird glowing hand with a stone on it. And this is a secret stone belonging to Rauru, who's like the original founding king of Hyrule. And when Zelda picks it up, and when Ganondorf not only uses his power to attack Link and Zelda, she teleports or time travels back to the founding of that kingdom, back when Rauru and Sonia became the king and queen of Hyrule. And Rauru is a Zonai, and they were talked about a bit in Breath of the Wild. There was like, if you played both Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, or one or the other, you will see some Zonai ruins, as well as with the Berserker armor. I think it's talked about how it's like made by the Zonai or something. I think that's what it says in the description. I don't 100% remember. But with Rauru, he's one of the last few Zonais left back in when he founded Hyrule, along with his sister Minoru. And with Zelda, she's trying to find her way back to her home time. And that's kind of like the B plot, I would say, of the game. And with the main plot with Link, he finds himself on a sky island and has to try and find Zelda, as well as helping the regions, or the different regions of Hyrule, with a particular phenomenon. So with the Rito, they have a bunch of snow, and it's like a blizzard. With the Gerudo, they're being attacked by Gyarados. With the Zora, they have a lot of muck and grime about the place, and the water supplies aren't really are almost dried up. And with the Gorons, they are pretty much on rock drugs. There's really nothing else I can talk about it when it comes to the Gorons. They are on rock drugs. So yeah, and it's up to Link to not only save all of the different races from their own particular phenomenons, but understand where Zelda is and figure out how to find her, as well as defeating Ganondorf. And I would say this plot It's pretty interesting. I think it's a big step up from Breath of the Wild in terms of how each thing, how each storyline is done. Because with Breath of the Wild, the story was just go to all these different locations and free the divine beasts from Calamity Ganon, and that was pretty interesting. But it was pretty much, when it comes to the divine beasts, they were pretty much the same. They were just copy paste, but with a different theme. So whether that's the Goron theme when you're in the entire crater center of the Death Mountain, with the Zoras is just water, Gerudo you're in the desert, and then the Rito you're in the sky, mountainy areas. And with Tears of the Kingdom, I think with the regional phenomena, it's so cool and they own unique thing, because with the Rito, you can see this giant blizzardy cloud vortex thing way up in the sky. With the Gerudo, you can see like that a whole lot of Gerudo, or the Gerudo area is covered in like this big sandstorm, and that's so cool. And also with Death Mountain, where the Gorons are, there's pretty much no lava flowing into the Goron village and the surrounding area, and it's all going into the volcano and into the lower areas of it, which I will talk about later, around about the gameplay section and probably later on in the video. But yeah, I think the story does feel a lot better, and I feel like the developers saw a lot of the criticisms from Breath of the Wild and kind of took it to heart and kind of made the story a whole lot better, and just made some stuff or made tweaks to how it was done. So yeah. Another thing that I do like about Tears of the Kingdom is the overworld in terms of how it's been expanded. Because with Breath of the Wild, that game, the entire world of Hyrule was pretty big. It was pretty huge for the game, and I think that's pretty much the largest version of Hyrule we've seen to date. But with Tears of the Kingdom, we've got two new extra bits of layers to the kingdom, because we've got the Sky Islands, which are basically these floating islands in the sky, obviously by the name, and they offer different challenges and stuff. So you've got the main Sky Island, where you basically it's a tutorial of the game, similar to the Great Plateau in Breath of the Wild, where you had to learn all your different Shikirune abilities. But with the Great Sky Island in Tears of the Kingdom, it's a tutorial for your new Zonai arm, which was used by Rauru, the King of Hyrule, and you're given these different Zonai hand abilities. So you've got Fuse, Ultra Hand, Ascend, and Rewind, and these abilities will help you out throughout the game. And I think these are all nice abilities, and I think they obviously help you throughout your journey. I think the best one for me personally is Ascend, because this ability allows you to basically just go through any surface or material Zonai device that you might have or find. So, for example, if you're fighting a Stone Talos, you might want to use Ascend to go through its main body and then up until it on the top, and then just hit its core. And then you might also want to use Rewind, because with that ability it helps you rewind a particular object back to its original position. And you can use that for falling sky blocks, or when it comes to like larger enemies like Hinoxes or Bokoblin bosses, they will use like stones or rocks or tree branches, and then you can use Rewind to make it go back to them and stuff like that. So all of the abilities all have their own uses when it comes to combat and stuff. And with this other layer of Hyrule, that is known as the Depths. And the Depths, I would say, is pretty much a mirror version of Hyrule, in that all valleys are hills and all hills are valleys. So it's kind of like a mirror world in a sort of sense. So you kind of have to take the main Hyrule Kingdom area into mind. So like if you want to go to a particular area and having the whole mountains are valleys and valleys are mountains approach. Like, okay, so this area in the overworld is a mountain, so it's probably going to be a valley in this area where I'm going to. And the depths, I would say, brings whole lot more, I would say, depth to the game, because I think the depths are probably a lot better than the Sky Islands, because the Sky Islands, I think they're fun. I think they're enjoyable to go around in, but I think what brings them down is that a lot of them are similar in the sort of sense that you've got the main Great Sky Island where you do the tutorial, and then you've got 2 dungeons that you can do, which are really fun, and I think that's where a lot of the positives from the Sky Islands kind of go away, because it's kind of similar to Skyward Sword, and that's my favorite game in the Zelda series, as well as my favorite game of all time. In that, with Skyward Sword, a lot of there isn't that much to do in the sky, and there are things to do. You can do like the Sky Loft. There's a few mini games here and there. There's the Great Thunderhead, but with Tears of the Kingdom, that game with the Sky Islands, it just you've got like a few islands that are pretty much the same, where you've got like this giant, like rotating ball thing. You'll see them a couple of times. You've also got like one where you have to move a bridge around, that sort of thing. And there are some unique ones, as I said before, the Great Sky Island. You've got the temples that you can do in there in the sky. But I think overall the depths are a lot better in terms of going and exploring and stuff like that. And plus, it holds some really, really cool challenges. So, for example, every time you fight a dungeon boss, you will be able to fight multiples of them in the depths. So there's up to 3 versions of them you can fight, and then they're all scattered around, roughly, I think, around the area that you fought them in, I think. But I think they're all mainly scattered about, so you will have to find them if you want to fight them, and then collect the contents of the chest where you fight them in. And yeah, I think the depths do offer a challenge, because as I said before, the main reason why you're investigating is because of the weird gloom substance, and the gloom can be found in the depths, and if you stay on it for long enough, one of your hearts will disappear, or not disappear. You won't be able to use it until you either reach a light route, which is where all of the shrines are, or if you warp to the surface. So I think that's really, really cool, and I think it's a cool, unique way of challenge and how the combat's used. So yeah, and now it's time for some gameplay. So before I get into anything, I just want to quickly show you the map. So the map has 3 different layers. So the sky, the normal surface that was brought over from Breath of the Wild, and also the depths. So the depths is pretty much the same as the surface, just a mirror. But the sky has a variety of sky islands, which are fun. I think they are enjoyable, but like they kind of have a bit of the Skyward Sword problem, in that there are repeating islands. So you will come across islands like this one. So this is one that's just a giant rotating ball, and there's another one similar around the Lineru area. I think this is another one that's pretty much the same as the other one I showed you. And then there's also like islands like this one, which is like a mini boss area. You've got the labyrinths. And I think the only ones that are sort of different is the Great Sky Island, which is the one you do the tutorial in, the dungeon or the temple Sky Islands, like the water temple and the wooden temple, and also this island, the Thunderhead Isle, which is where you do a quest for one of the quests in the final part of the game, which I'm not going to spoil in case someone doesn't want it spoiled. But I do want to show you something that's quite cool. which is first I'm going to put on my glide armor, which I think is quite, I do like, because like in this game, not only do we have returning armor like the Hylian tunic, the Snowquill armor, the Flamebreaker armor, you've also got some new armor like the glide armor, the miner armor, and the charged shirt armor, and all of these all have their own unique abilities. So, for example, with the glide armor that I'm wearing right now, it's if you upgrade all of the pieces to level 2, you'll be impact proof. And what this means is, which I'll show you in a minute, is that if you dive from a sky island or from a place that's really high up, you won't take full damage, which I think is really cool. And also, the glide armor really helps you get from place to place if you're just going from an island to a bit of Hyrule or in the depth or something like that. But also, what's really cool is that you can go from the Sky Islands, like if you're like close to a depth hole, you can go from the Sky Islands to Hyrule Castle or to the Hyrule Field area or the main service area, and then to the depths, all in one go if you got like the right armor and the right in the right place. So I'm going to dive from here, and yeah, I think what's really cool is that this whole game is on a console that's almost 10 years old. It's what, 8 years old now, the Nintendo Switch? And you can do all of this. You can go from the Sky Islands to the surface and then to the depths in one go. And there are some parts where it will have to catch up with you, the game will catch up with you, like this. It will have to catch up with you a bit. But that's really cool. Now I'm on the depths, and that's all done in one go. And this is on a system that's almost 10 years old. This is like an 8-year-old console right now, and the Switch 2 is releasing in less than a month. So yeah, also you can throw stuff. So in the depths, and you're in like a place that isn't covered in light, you can throw Blight Bloom seeds, which will help you see for a certain range. And there's like a normal one and a large one, and they have different amounts of light. So the Blight Bloom seeds have a small amount of light, the giant ones have a large amount of light, and then the light roots, depending on which one you activate, they do have a large amount of light, but it really depends on which one you're going for. And also, every light root is a shrine, and every shrine is a light root. So yeah. And also, the abilities, you've got one of them is called Rewind, which I think is really cool, and also that's really good for attacks and stuff, so like combat and stuff. So if I was, let's say, attacking an enemy, let's say for example, there's an enemy right now in front of me. I could throw my weapon, I could miss, let's say. I could then use Rewind on that weapon. It could come back and then hit the enemy. And that's really cool, and it adds a lot more cool stuff to combat. It's kind of like how you'd use like the bomb or the remote bombs or stasis or magnesis if you're playing Breath of the Wild. And that's really cool. It adds a whole lot to the combat. And also, with the light roots, which we'll show you right now, they kind of like activate a certain portion of the depths. And I think that really helps a lot when it comes to exploration, because when you first enter the depths, it's completely dark, but the more you activate, the more light you'll see, and then once you've collected or once you've activated every single light root, you'll get this thing called the Bright Bloom Seed Guide thing. I've done it before, and I don't 100% remember what the item is called, but it's like this thing when you get like all the Bright Bloom seeds. So yeah, and then you'll see what you've seen is all of the light is being dispelled for a particular area, and also if you have taken hearts. So let's just find some gloom. Here we go. This is a good example. So if I go into gloom and just wait for a bit, I will have taken damage, and that means I can't heal above where that broken heart is until I go to a light route or over go back to the surface. So, like this. So now that my heart is recovered, I can now heal. And I can also heal with gloom-resistant meals and stuff like that. So, yeah, and also, where you find, like, mines and stuff, it's in a particular area of the map. So, for example, the Hateno, or the abandoned Hateno mine, is where Hateno Village is, which I think is really cool. And also, hopefully, if a blood moon has happened, or something like that, something I do want to show off is that in certain areas, I think I've talked about this before, in certain areas you can refight bosses, which I think is really cool. And, well, or temple bosses. So temple bosses you can find in depth, so do you think it's really cool? There we go. So you can fight Colgera, and Goma, and Matarok, and the other one, Queen Gipto. There we go. So you can find them in certain parts of the depths, and that's really cool. And I think, it adds a lot of replayability to the game when you're just exploring, and I think it adds a lot more to the depths, I would say, because the depths is pretty much, even though a lot of it is empty, quote unquote, you can find stuff that's just like this, just about if you're just exploring the depths, and that's really cool. And even though I do like the Sky Islands, I do think they hold a candle to things like the depths, because the depths you've got more stuff to do, and you can just do and find a lot more cool stuff when it does come to like exploration stuff. And yeah, and also with Colgera, you can just, if you want, either dive, or if I can just get this one will do. You can do this. There we go. And again, and I'm not a huge fan of the bow and arrow trick. It's useful, but it's not really my favourite. And also, I just want to leave this bit in quickly. Yeah, well, what I mean by this is that it's Rito themed. Just give me a minute. Oh, so good! So good. I think that's why Colgera is probably my favourite dungeon boss, because it's so cool, because you can dive or use arrows on it, but also it's got the Rito, the Dragon Roost theme from Wind Waker. Well, the Rito Village does have that as well, but because it's so cool. It's so cool, it's so... So yeah, that's been it for the gameplay. Now it's time to go back to the review. So, overall, I would say that Tears of the Kingdom does have a lot of improvements over Breath of the Wild. So, for example, the bosses. I think the bosses are a huge improvement when compared to Breath of the Wild, because with the bosses in Tears of the Kingdom, they are all unique to their own temples. So, for example, and they're all relevant to each of the regional phenomenons. So, for example, in the Rito area, when you go to the Wind Temple, you get to fight Colgera, who's this giant bug worm thing, and Colgera is the reason why there's a massive storm in the Rito area. Then you've got the Queen Gibdo, who's making a lot of sandstorms in the Gerudo area, and it's because she's like this giant insecty thing. Kind of like, take like a fly and just supersize it to like the size of a house or something. That's basically Queen Gibdo. And then with the Rito, with the Sora, you've got this Matarok creature, which is basically this weird sort of octopus looking thing, and it's just creating sludge everywhere. Then with the Gorons, it's all because of this like marble Goma thing, which is pretty much Goma, but in marble rock form. And that's why there's no lava in the main overworld, and why a lot of it is in the depths. And yeah, I think that's really cool because when you compare it to the bosses in Breath of the Wild, a lot of pretty much all of the bosses are just a copy paste, but with a different elements. So you've got Windblight Ganon, Thunderblight Ganon, Fireblight, and Waterblight Ganon, and they are fun to fight. I just think with those bosses, they are pretty much copy paste with just different dialogues from the different champions who fought these blights when they were fighting them 100 years ago in the context of Breath of the Wild. And yeah, with the bosses in Tears of the Kingdom, they're a lot more fun. And also there's new roaming bosses in the game, because there are some old ones, or pretty much all of the old ones from Breath of the Wild are brought back. So you've got the Hinoxes, Stalnoxes, the Moldugas, and the Stone Taluses. But now you've got some new ones, like the Flux Constructs, and also the new super bosses, I would say, that being the Gleeoks. And the Gleeoks in that game are so tough, because they are these giant, multi-headed dragons, and you can fight 4 varieties of them. There's the Ice Gleeok, Fire Gleeok, Thunder Gleeok, and the King Gleeok. And the Fire, Ice, and Thunder ones all have the same head of that particular element. So the Fire one has 3 fire heads, the Ice one has 3 ice heads, and the Thunder one has 3 electric heads. And with the King Gleeok, it has 1 head for each variant. So 1 electric one, 1 ice one, 1 fire one. And they are super, super tough. And I think, again, that's what Breath of the Wild is lacking a bit, in that it has to have a challenge. And the Gleeoks, as a roaming super boss sort of enemy, are so cool to fight. And it's so cool when you actually get to take one out. And yeah, and I do wish we had a bit more varieties, maybe, because I think with the roaming bosses, they are fun. Maybe if we had like one more roaming boss. I think there is another roaming boss. I don't 100% remember, but there aren't the refights of the bosses or the roaming bosses that we've seen in Breath of the Wild and some of the new ones in Tears of the Kingdom. But if we had at least one more, if we had one more roaming boss, I think it would be perfect in terms of how we've seen. Maybe like a Moldorm or something. But I'm not judgy. I'm not really too ugh. I think what we have with the roaming bosses are fun, and I think they're really, really cool and enjoyable. So yeah, and then there is the final boss, Ganondorf himself. And I would say this is a really cool final boss, because this is basically, we haven't had a one-on-one Ganondorf fight since Twilight Princess. And this fight is in 3 stages, I believe. So the first stage is basically just a one-on-one fight with Ganondorf. And then around about the second phase, the sages that you find in the game will help you, and then the final phase, Ganondorf becomes a giant dragon. And yeah, I would say this fight is so surprising, because in the second phase, Ganondorf will power up, and you get to see his health bar kind of start to refill itself. And you're thinking, oh, that's cool, he's just getting stronger. But then you get to see the health bar just get longer and longer and longer. And I think, again, similar to some other stuff like the bosses and stuff, this is a sort of the developers hearing criticisms about the final boss of Calamity Ganon in Breath of the Wild, where with that fight, it was easy. It was it took 15 minutes to fight Calamity Ganon as well as Dark Beast Ganon, and then they took those criticisms and put that into Ganondorf, made it a whole lot harder and a lot more challenging to fight him. And then with his dragon form, it still feels easy. It kind of feels like an easier fight to do when compared to Dark Beast Ganon. But I would say that the that this final fight with the dragon is so cool because you're now in the sky and riding on the back of a light dragon, which you can see at the very beginning of the game, which is Princess Zelda, because she also swallowed a secret stone and then she became a dragon to restore the Master Sword, which was broken during the first encounter with Ganondorf. And I think that with that twist, it can be cool, but it can also be ruined because of the whole memory tier thing. So yeah, I think it is really cool or it's spoiled depending on who you ask. When it comes to Tears of the Kingdom. So yeah, so overall, I would say that Tears of the Kingdom is a really cool game. I think it's it's a good improvement over Breath of the Wild, but I can see where people will be coming from if they say that they prefer Breath of the Wild over Tears of the Kingdom or Tears of the Kingdom over Breath of the Wild. So yeah, I think for me personally, I like Tears of the Kingdom. It's a really cool game and it has a lot of improvements over Breath of the Wild, and I can say that, Breath of the Wild also has some improvements, or has some things that are better than Breath of the Wild, or Tears of the Kingdom. So yeah, so that's been my review for The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.